Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette. So glad you joined us today to stay curious. Today, we're going to talk about Women's Month. And March is historically Women's Celebration Month in America. And we are going to talk about 5 fabulous astronauts that not only inspired women, but also men with their careers. By the way, yesterday, if you look back, we had NASA legend Joanne Morgan on here, who says again that she also broke the glass ceiling for a lot of women, but she also feels like she inspired women. She was a surprise guest coming on about 30 minutes into yesterday's show about the first spacewalk by Russian Alexei Leonov. So you want to check that out as we're talking about women in space. So Marty Winkle is here behind the Streamlabs board. Hi, Marty. We've got a board meeting we've got to chase out of here. So we have a hard 4:30 off today for all of you that are faithful watchers of Stay Curious. And let me see if I can get you booted up there so I can say hi to a few of you. Oh, that didn't work. So Marty, I'm going to have you say hello to everybody as I'm going to have to be concise today. So, um, you know, here's a quote from a woman astronaut. Quote, "Don't get bogged down by the notion of limits. There aren't any." And that is Sunny Williams, her remarks before she went up on the Starliner and came back on the Crew Dragon yesterday. And Christina Cook, who is going to be on the Artemis 2 launch and go on the trip around the moon. Christina Cook says, "Follow your passions, live the life you've imagined, and do what scares you." Okay, so there's 2 great astronauts and their words of advice. There's no limits. You can do what you want and do what scares you, says Christina Cook. And before the month's up, we'll add a few more lady astronaut quotes to things. But I've laced a few bios. We're going to do 5 quick bios of some wonderful astronauts, a few personal anecdotes maybe from them, and but a few quotes from some of the notables, like Sally Ride. "I would like to be remembered as someone who is not afraid to do what she wanted to do, and as someone who took risks along the way in order to achieve her goals." Sounds like a familiar theme, Marty, not just for men, but women, is to do what you love, but be willing to step outside the box to achieve your goals. I also liked another quote that Sally Ride is famous for, America's first woman in space. And Sally Ride once said, "You can't be what you can't see." And that was her being a woman astronaut to so many young women that wanted to be astronauts. And we know she inspired even a few of them that we're going to talk about today. You can't be what you can't see. Well, first up is Ellen Ochoa. No, I'm sorry, not Ellen Ochoa. I got her on my mind. Nancy Curie Gregg. Nancy Gregg, former Nancy Decker. All right. She had 4 shuttle missions and was born in Wilmington, Delaware in 1958. She's a graduate of Ohio State University and her Master of Science degree. And then, as most astronauts discover they need more education to become an astronaut, she got her PhD in science from the University of Houston. Served in the Army over 23 years. There's Nancy as she looks today with her Army helmet there. She was on a rotary wing pilot training them on there. She's got 41 days in space. I think she'd be a good candidate out there at the astronaut encounter, Marty, that we go to all the time. But let's look at a couple of her personal life. There's another shot of her. She was interim deputy director at this Bush Combat Development Complex at Texas A&M. An Aggie at heart, I'm sure by that. She's been involved in North Carolina State University's Department of Industrial Engineering. All right, involved with robotics. A couple of her missions, she had a good astronaut career. One of them was as part of the Hubble repair team going up with Carrie as the commander, Scott Altman, the pilot, and we'll be hearing from Grunsfeld at our Shuttle Fest, and Newman was on that. And we like Jim Newman when he comes out to Space Center. She deployed a tracking data and relay satellite. She was on Endeavour twice, Columbia once, and Discovery once. Her orbiters of her career there. There she is in a payload bay of one of them there. Not payload bay, in the mid deck down there. And there's the Hubble, of course, on there. And there she is. Oh, I guess I went backwards. No, I didn't go backwards. I showed that picture twice of Nancy Curry Gregg, okay, and still out there supporting space by all the talks that she does to inspire the next generation. Kapulna Chawla, known as KC, to her astronaut colleagues and friends, lost her life in the Columbia accident after one successful mission. Here's one of her sayings: "The path from dreams to success does exist. May you have the vision to find it, the courage to get onto it, and the perseverance to follow it. Wishing you a great journey." What an optimistic way to look at your life, that you create your vision, you have a courage to get on that path for that vision, and don't ever give up. This fascinating lady, I've heard a good story from astronaut Tom Jones about. You did too, Marty, when Tom was on our show. Born in Chattanooga, Tennessee, was Tamara Elizabeth Jernigan, known as Tammy. Okay, she is married to astronaut Jeff Wissoff, and both of them are now work at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, a big think tank of smart people on there. Like I said, born in Chattanooga, Tennessee in 1959. And she went to Stanford University and University of Berkeley and Rice University in Texas to get her PhD as an astrophysicist. There she is before she flew in space. She was one of the astronomers that was on Astro 2 that had two very successful missions, and now that telescope is sitting in Huntsville at the U.S. Rocket Space Center there, a restoration project of our good friend Mikey Haddad and his buddies that worked on that. There's Tammy working in a simulator. All right, lots and lots of training, and this is in Houston. She was a deputy chief of the astronaut office, assisting and managing the military and civilian astronauts, and she was deputy for the space station. Okay. 4 missions to space, a total of 63 days. So each of those missions were pretty long missions, all right. There's the Astro 2 that I think was like a 12-day mission. She also flew with Tom Jones. There's her husband, Jeff Wissoff, after one of his flights. I think he's been to space 3 times. A great story about her is she and Tom Jones are ready to do a spacewalk at EVA. They've done all the 2-hour prep. They're sitting in Destiny at the International Space. No, they're in the shuttle. That's what they are. They're in the shuttle, ready to go out in the payload bay. And the door won't open on the shuttle. And they try to twist it. The door won't open. The door won't open. The hatch to go out to space. So she ends up aborting the spacewalk that she and Tom Jones trained so long for. And when they got back to Earth, they found a washer or a nut was involved with the turning mechanism and jamming it. A simple thing like that. And weightlessness of all doubt. You wish you could just pound it and make that fly away. But all that training, and I asked Tom Jones about that, and he said that's just the one of many things that didn't go the way you expected it. You can make plans, but you can't plan the outcome. And Tammy Jernigan certainly has fulfilled a lot of her dreams and ambitions by her 63 days in space, and now working in a think tank science lab with her husband here, Jeff Wissaw. Mae Jemison, the first African American woman to go to space, she had this saying: never be limited by other people's imagination. Never limit others because of your own limited imagination. All right. Again, a theme going through these women of space, that you've got to dream big, maybe bigger than a man dreamed, because it was a man's world for such a long time. Thank God we've changed that. All right. But don't be limited to your own imagination, says Mae Jemison. Another astronaut I'd love to meet is Linda Godwin. Linda was born in Cape Girardeau, Mississippi in July 1952. She's got 39 days in space on 4 missions. I like showing how they sign things, Marty. And that is, again, before she she was a astronaut candidate, an ASCAN back in those days, and young and ready to fly. And there's one of her first flights there was STS, which one is that? 59? That could be 37.
76?
That's 76. Oh, yeah, 76. They got the 76 there. That fooled me like it was like 1976. Duh, you couldn't, the shuttle hadn't flown yet. She did a spacewalk on this flight. All right. She's also visited, this was to the Mir space station, the 3rd docking. So she got the treat of seeing that. That's why that's on there. There she is in space. Linda Godwin, member of the American Physical Society, the 99s, which was the women's aviation group formed by Amelia Earhart. She was married to astronaut Steve Nagel, who was her commander on her first flight. And he passed away from cancer in 2014, Steve Nagel. So another astronaut romance that was born out of their training. A big Jackson, Missouri person, was really her hometown, though born in Cape Girardeau. You Missourians know where Jackson is. And she's mathematics and physics. And she went back to one of her schools to teach math and physics. Don't have that info there with her. But there she is, and in her golden years of life there. There, I got a picture of her teaching there, concepts of astronomy there. And always love seeing the chalkboard there, Marty. So Linda Godwin, another woman that inspired other women to go to space. She was, her span of flights was from 1991 to 2001. So she's got 10 years there where she did her flights over there, and got to do, she did more than one spacewalk. It doesn't mention there. She did it on 67, so that's quite something to do that also, spacewalk, and then do your science experiments in space. Next, we got Marsha Ivins, and Marsha just became the latest woman inducted into the Astronaut Hall of Fame by the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation. Marsha's got 5 flights to space, 55 days, born in Baltimore, Maryland. She went to, then her family moved, and she went to Nether Providence High School in Wallingford, Pennsylvania. And then she went to Boulder, Colorado, University of Colorado, and got her bachelor's in aerospace engineering. She is of Jewish American descent and known for her big hair in space, right, Marty? Everybody loves Marsha and her gorgeous hair that she still wears very, very long in her senior years. She really, boy, if you could pick the missions that she wanted to be on, she picked up the long duration lab. Then she went up with Andy Allen and Casper as the commander and pilot there to do an STS-62, which was a microgravity payload experiment. Okay. She also flew with Andy on 46, the tethered satellite system. up there. There she is again, manning cameras with the big hair. Very petite lady. I've stood next to her and talked to her a little bit. I told her, Marty, that we did this Stay Curious program, and that we really love the shuttle era. There is her signature. Where is Marcia's signature on that crew? There she is, right there. Yeah, Marcia Ivins right there. Below Sammy, Sam Gemar there. And there's a beautiful picture taken of her. She, when I told her, Marty, that we really emphasize the shuttle era and the legacy of the space shuttle, she said, good, because NASA TV doesn't show enough about the space shuttle. They're always showing about Apollo on there. So I want you to know that we are representing you, shuttle astronauts, like none other, Marcia. And hopefully one day we'll get you here in our studio for a beautiful Stay Curious. So my last astronaut lady celebrating the month of March and Women's Month is a business acquaintance of mine. Hard to call astronauts friends when you just see them over a luncheon occasionally, but I have had a bunch of lunches with Kay Heyer, okay? And there she signed, Bob, thanks for all the great press, Kay Heyer. And I'll bet that's the Bob Granath, Marty. Or definitely. I'll have to show him next time he's on there. There's Kay when she was a worker at Kennedy Space Center and worked on payloads. She became a test project engineer and was the first astronaut, male or female, to transition from working on an orbiter to becoming an astronaut. Captain in the U.S. Air Force, U.S. Navy, 2 shuttle missions and almost 30 days in space. She was on the NeuroLab mission of STS-90, and then she waited 10 years to fly again, Marty, from 1998 to 2010. 12 years she waited to take a flight on STS-130 and take the cupola up to the space station. That's the patch that she has on there. I've gotten to know Kay pretty well. She speaks her mind about issues. She comes to our NASA old timers luncheon that I've been privileged to go to, that Hugh Harris started, and Lisa Malone, as public affairs officer, retired, does it there. There's Kay in recent times here. So I said to Kay, Marty, one time, I said, Butch and Sonny hadn't been launched yet. And I said, Butch has waited 12 years and Sonny 13 years, just like you, for a mission. And isn't that a waste of an astronaut's talent to let them go a whole decade without flying all they know? Butch had over 300 days in space, Sonny over 450 days in space already, and yet they waited 12 years and 13 years to go back to space. Kay Heyer jumped out of her chair and said, Mark, they're test pilots. This is what they live to do. The Starliner flight is as important as STS-1. They are as brave as John Young and Bob Crippen taking the first test flight of a spaceship in that environment. And so she straightened me out, and I get what she says, that they've been training so long, and this is what they wanted to do, and they felt that they were specially chosen to be the test pilots for this new spacecraft, the Boeing Starliner. We know how that all turned out. They landed, they were going to be up there 8 days. 8 months later, they land, and everything has worked out okay in there. So we want to shout out to Kay there. There she is at the Rocket Ranch reunion with myself in there. Always the Rocket Ranch reunion. There she is with 5 other test project engineers, including Melinda Tribe there, and Eric Baker in the red jacket. And Eric is our faithful docent on Monday afternoons there. And that's Larry Clark, who is on our board of directors beside Kay there. So just give you a little behind the scenes of astronauts out there among their people out there. And I got to show her looking very pretty with very handsome MarQ there at an event. I think that was probably in Washington, D.C. Don't hold me to that, but Kay, love you, and we miss seeing you here on the Space Coast. She was the first female in the U.S. military assigned to a combat aircrew, reporting to Patrol Squadron 62 in May 1993 as a navigator communicator flying the P3C update. Okay. The very first woman allowed in a conflict area, and I think that was Grenada. She later served on the USS Kitty Hawk. And Kay is doing consulting work and is involved in some projects in New England there. So, I mean, in England. So, you can do it. Celebrate Women's History Month, just like we do here at the American Space Museum on a rather short show, but filled with a lot of information as Marty and I are going to exit and get into our board of directors meeting. Me, of course, the director of the museum here, and Marty is a board member held in high esteem with our board. So thank you, Steve Jokums, Dave Stange, Bob Mayran, Tom Usiak, Carlton Bailey, Gary Gerald, Dean Babcock, Nick Sedler, Mark Thal, Mitch Rothman, and Doug Forrest. And Tom Celentano's watching, I'll bet. No women? Oh, Connie McDaniel's watching. I know that. She's got to be watching. Hopefully Anita's watching. And we had Julie Clay in the building here. She was running around here. So maybe she's watching on our big screen there. So thank you all for letting us share what we think is important. When there's a holiday or a month, we do celebrate that month as best we can, acknowledging our wonderful astronauts of the space shuttle era and the Apollo era that have done things like none other. Go to the moon and build a permanent space station. We did it well, the Mir space station was permanent, but we really built something that has changed society up there at the International Space Station. Chinese Tiangong is permanent up there too, so don't beat me up over that. My point is, our American space workers rock, and they've changed our society. Sharon Rodriguez, you know that out there at the Sands History Museum, where you're running that gift shop out there. So tomorrow will be Thursday. We're going to talk about some space history. Friday, we'll hit up some backyard astronomy, as we'll be celebrating 321 Day on Friday at just a block away from us, our museum in downtown Titusville. So thank you all for watching. We'll be back tomorrow. Marty and I are headed off to see what our bosses want us to do. Until then, I'm Mark Marquette saying I can't wait to see you in our museum to bridge the space between us.